Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
Welcome back to the High Rise, a laid-back, data-back conversation where we talk all things cannabis, from U.S. MSOs to Canadian LPs, products and market analysis through the lens of data. My name is Cy Scott with Headset, and I am here at a very special poolside session at Benzinga in Miami with a very special guest, Kim Rivers, CEO of Trulieve. Thanks for joining us, Kim.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, this is great to be here. We're definitely in your backyard, and I do want to talk about Florida, but before we get into that, I'd love to talk a follow-up on another poolside session. So we had the privilege of speaking with Valda, your CMO of Trulieve, while we were at South by Southwest, and actually was on a panel with her. I moderated the panel, which I heard fantastic feedback, which was great. It's really rare to get feedback on a panel, days after, and people loved it, loved hearing from her, we loved talking to her. And one of the things I think that was just announced, this was back in March, was the Ethan Zone ambassadorship for Trulieve. And I'd love to kind of learn, in your words, like how that program came about, because I think it's a unique and interesting aspect of cannabis that a lot of people don't think about often. So why don't we start there?
Absolutely. So, our partnership with Ethan has been a really wonderful one. Many of you know Ethan from Survivor, and he is a passionate cannabis advocate. Some of you may not know that he's also a two-time cancer survivor. He's 10 years plus in remission, and that's one of the reasons that he is so passionate about cannabis. And so we thought that it would be a great partnership to marry his passion and his athleticism in terms of his, marathon, again, passion for running, with the launch of our new wellness brand, Momenta. And so we approached him, and he was all for it. He actually just completed the Boston Marathon on Monday, and you should check out his Instagram. He posted about it in his stories, and he's really been vocal in terms of getting in front of media and really talking about his choice to use cannabis during his training, as opposed to other, performance enhancers and other things, Aleve, et cetera, that folks take when they're training for such an intense event, such as the Boston Marathon. So it's been a really, like I said, wonderful partnership and marriage of someone who's well-known and who is, again, a cancer survivor, along with our new wellness line. So we're thrilled.
That's fantastic. And wellness, I mean, it's such a big piece of the industry, but I feel like it's maybe underrepresented. And when you have an ambassador like that, that's a prominent person that's doing things that I can only dream of, like a Boston Marathon, successfully, and brings cannabis into the regimen, I think that's just really validating for the space.
It is, and I think that, I think something, like running and with Ethan, it's a little bit more approachable than some of the athlete stories that we hear about with like NFL players, and which are fabulous also. But, I think it really is, illustrative of how cannabis can be a part of your routine and part of your, like you said, your wellness journey, and how you can incorporate it into, all of us are aspiring athletes, I guess. And so, and I think, being able to highlight the fact that cannabis can be a natural alternative to making you feel as best you can.
Yeah, very, very cool. Very cool. And looking forward to more things like that from Trulieve in the future here. Today is also a very special day. It's actually 420. I feel like 420 is an entire week these days, or maybe almost a month. But we're here. Yeah. We're here on the actual 420. I would love to talk about what that looks like for you, and how your organization thinks about it. I'm sure there's a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations building up into a big campaign to really celebrate this day. So what does that look like at Trulieve?
Yeah, well, first of all, happy 420. It's a lot of planning goes into 420, I'm sure, at Trulieve, like most companies. And we really like to take a holistic approach and think about it as a true campaign that's centered around purpose. And so this year's 420 campaign theme is 420 for all, with proceeds going to Last Prisoners Project. And so we think it's a great day to obviously highlight and celebrate cannabis, but also to highlight how far kind of we have to go. And so as part of today's activities, we also made the first sale of and launched the Delicioso brand, which is Richard Delosi, who is the longest serving he served the longest sentence in federal prison for cannabis here in the state of Florida. And so we worked with him to come out with a brand that we just launched, and he was present this morning to make the first sale of that brand. So really coming full circle to hopefully set and help him have a successful business in cannabis now that he's on the other side. So yes, we have a lot of new product launches today, new strains that have come to market that have not been in market previously, and of course celebrations through our doorbusters all throughout the day. Stop by Trulieve if you haven't already. But it really is, again, trying to highlight the fact that there is still so much work to be done in terms of advocacy and pushing cannabis access forward.
That's great to hear that it goes beyond just like sales, like just deals. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed with the war on drugs, and supporting individuals that have dealt with that in those ways. I mean, that's amazing, and that's a very unique way to do it. So what does this new brand line consist of? What types of products?
So it's pre-rolls and flower is what we're going to launch with. So we're going to lead with flower. That certainly is a product he's very familiar with and very passionate about. And so we've worked with him on the genetics and again, bringing kind of his vision to life in terms of the brand, and we'll expand out from there, which we found to be a very successful strategy with brand launches in Florida. Folks fall in love with the genetics and with the flower, and then are more prone to connect with the brand when we bring it out in other form factors. The other thing I should mention that the team worked really hard on, so I want to make sure I highlight, is we also launched our first NFT collection, which is pretty cool. Again, 100% of the proceeds going to raise money for Last Prisoner Project. And so we literally raised, and the final number's not out yet, but tens of thousands of dollars in our first NFT launch for Last Prisoners Project. So that's been a really fun way to kind of dip our toe into the metaverse space.
Yeah, I did notice that, the NFTs, and I did want to ask you about it. It's pretty fascinating. Do you have any NFTs yourself? Have you?
Yeah,
started?
And actually Christine, who's my director of IR, who's here, she's I would have bought more, but she got them all before. No, so it's been really popular too among our employees, among investors, among customers. So it's been a great kind of cross-sectionally connect across different Trulieve fans.
Yeah, very cool. Do you think this is something that we're going to see more of from Trulieve, or is it a 420 limited edition point in time?
So I think that this collection is obviously closed, and so we're going to turn the page on this collection. But I think it is something that, and we're really thinking a lot about how the metaverse and the real verse, I guess, connect, and how we can have connectivity between the two, and how we can incorporate it in a rational way going forward. So right now, just trying to learn as much as we can and understand the mechanics and how everything fits together. But no, I do think that you'll see some additional activity from us in the future.
Very cool. And it's great that all the proceeds are going to Last Prisoner Project. So great way to experiment and do some good at the same time.
Absolutely.
So are you going to get a chance to see any of this, given we're here at this conference? Is it?
Yeah, don't tell anyone, but I'm actually going to sneak out here in about 30 minutes and get to a couple of our stores. And it's really killing me not to be in market. That's where I normally am for 420. And so, I want to definitely, give some high fives out to our hardworking employees. This is a really long day for them. It's a fun day, but it's a long day. And also, meet and greet some patients out there. So yeah, I'm gonna sneak away.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. I would do the same thing if I was you. I mean, it is such a big day, and you're right. It's your staff. Everyone's working hard. I'm sure they would appreciate a visit and just kind of a way to see what's going on for you too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't blame you. And the conference is here tomorrow too, right?
That's
so
right.
Still plenty of time, in the Benzinga show to come. So we're in Florida. You're based in Florida. So I want to talk a bit about the Florida market. So Florida has over 700,000 patients, which is a lot of patients, and 22 million residents. So it's about 3% of the population. Do you expect this number to grow? Is this, it continues to grow, I should say. So, is it going to continue to grow at the same clip? Are there things that can help accelerate its growth? How do you feel about where the market's at right now?
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting because when we were first, writing our application and putting together kind of our business plan for Florida, there were a number of other markets that we looked at for guidance. And it's interesting because it's really a question of like when medical markets get to a saturation point, and then when does the rec or the flip to rec happen. among that kind of journey, if you will. And so, our initial data was 400,000 patients. And so I think it's interesting that now we've obviously surpassed that and are continuing to grow. And so I think that the way that the law is constructed and the way that the program has continued to accelerate it's fascinating. Look, during COVID, it was like 7,000 patients per week. That dipped down. The lowest point last year, I think, was about 1,300 patients. But on average, over the last several years, it's been anywhere between 2,500 and 3,500 patients per week, pretty steadily every single week. And so we're continuing to see that growth. I think it's, interesting because obviously we've had population shifts here as well, with more and more people coming into Florida. And of course, we're ramping up, in the push for recreational here as well. And so it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling, I feel like, market where the more people enter, then the more people talk about the fact that that they've incorporated cannabis, and then you get whole kind of groups and communities. It's not unusual, and I hear this anecdotal quite a lot, that one person, for example, in an assisted living community will, get their medical card, and then the next thing you know, there's buses that literally come to our facilities on like days of the week that bring medical card holders from those communities. And so it is a different dynamic here, and I do think it's going to continue to grow. At least we haven't seen signs that it won't. And so for us, we're going to continue to expand right along with it, and then of course looking forward to the opportunity when we can really harness the population here in a recreational club.
Yeah, it seems like certainly patient growth is there, and then your store expansion. I feel like all the time I'm reading about, just last month or even more sooner than that, like more stores opening, more dispensaries under Trulieve. So probably plenty of room. Is there anything like about the Florida market that you would change if you could?
Sure. I think there's things about every market that we would change if we could. Florida's no exception. I would love to see telemedicine being adopted for good, right? When I mentioned that there were 7,000 patients per week, that was during COVID when an emergency order had been issued, so that telemedicine was allowed for renewals. It obviously had a huge impact on the adoption rates for renewals in the state of Florida, and also freed up time so that physicians can become more efficient. And so I think that just goes to show, though, that there is still incredible demand, and that really, I don't think it's a coincidence that it's 2,500 to 3,500. I think that may be the number that's just how many patients the physician network can see in the state of Florida in a given week. And so, that would be fantastic. I think that, the department continues to work on making sure that we can get, staff members background checked in a reasonable manner. There is still work to do, I feel like, on a few testing issues. And then of course the big one that we've talked about a little bit is I would love to see recreational in Florida. So that really is, again, something that I think, we're going to be putting a lot of energy behind, I think, with some others here very, very soon.
And to the recreational point, with the Harvest acquisition, now you're getting some exposure to markets that have adult use cannabis, markets like Arizona. How has that transition been? It's always fascinating to me with organizations like Trulieve, like the scale that you have to deal with, and going from Florida now into many markets, different legislation, different rules, different frameworks, different operators. Is there anything that you like about some of these markets? Anything you're learning that other markets could benefit from?
It's important to remember that Trulieve was in a number of other states prior to Harvest. Last year, as an example, we completed 7 acquisitions, and Harvest was just one of them, and it was the last one. And so, we've had experience in terms of we've been in adult use states for a while now, not at the same level of scale, of course, but there's learnings in every market we're constantly evolving and constantly trying to take best practices and apply them in a scaled way. I think that, I say our job as a corporation is to create those opportunities for economies of scale and efficiencies, to offer, particularly in shared services, robust support network across markets. But it's also really important to make sure that we're plugged in and listening and thoughtful at a local level, and I don't even mean a state level, I mean a local level, because if you take the state of Florida, for example, or Arizona or Pennsylvania, a certain part of the state doesn't necessarily behave the way another part of the state does as it relates to consumer preferences and demographics. And so how we think about SKU selection, how we think about assortment, it matters. And so I think that, for us, just being mindful of that balance and making sure that, again, we're providing the best infrastructure, we're providing the best opportunity for success, again, through scale and through efficiencies, and best practices. So if there's an issue, it's likely not the first time we've seen it. So cross knowledge, sharing knowledge across markets, but then also leaving enough flexibility and room for us to allow for true and authentic connectivity in market down to the local level. And so there's lots of learnings and lots of things to talk about there. But
I know it's the biggest open-ended question, right? Because there's just like so much. I mean, and so many ways to cut it. And that's a really good point about, these states like Pennsylvania that are sizable states with big populations, and the cultural differences and between the different areas of the state, like Western Pennsylvania is very different than Eastern Pennsylvania, and across all the markets, it's complex already, and then you have that added layer of complexity when you drill down a layer. So yeah, it must be quite complicated.
Yeah, complexity, therein lies the opportunity. And I also think, right, like our deep understanding of scale and what scale affords you, it affords you the luxury of having distribution and the capability to make an assortment where you can be specific in terms of how you're stocking shelves and how you're reaching customers. And so that back of house supply chain is super important as we talk about executing on really a regional and a local strategy, which is really what we're talking about. And so in Florida, as an example, we were able to successfully launch Miami Mango, which is a regional, very, very popular concentrate here in the South Florida area. And so, but we did it in a kind of a craft, again, limited edition way. But we wouldn't have the ability to do that and also do all of our other products if we didn't have the types of facilities that we have here. So we're able to say yes and get creative and try things that I think other folks don't have the luxury of doing.
That's a very, very good point. Well, Kim, where can people learn more about Trulieve and find out what the latest is?
Wow, thanks for the layup. So to find out more, you can certainly check out our website, which is trulieve.com. We are on all of the social media channels. On Instagram, we're actually Trulieve with an underscore. And then we have brand pages there as well. So you can check out Momenta, you can check out Muse, Cultivar Collection. And we would love to hear from you. We'd love to engage.
Well, thanks for joining. Really appreciate the conversation, and have fun visiting your stores today on 420.
Thanks. Yeah, I will.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.